If someone had told me fate would send a girl in ripped jeans and a chipped black manicure, I would have called it fanfiction. Cameras burst like a storm of judgment as Sloan Avery tossed back the last sip of champagne and leaned into the mic, a lazy, glittering smirk unfurling across her lips. "I'll marry the next fan who walks through that door," she laughed, careless, audacious, the kind of bravado that comes only from exhaustion draped in diamonds. The crowd roared. Studio execs offered polite chuckles. Her agent's jaw tightened so hard Sloan could almost hear the grind. None of it mattered. She was on autopilot, just another room, another event, another stride on the endless treadmill of curated perfection slowly hollowing her out. She never expected anyone to take it seriously. She certainly didn't expect her. The doors parted seconds later and the room fell silent, not for royalty, not for a shrieking superfan in a Sloan tee, but from confusion, from the wrongness of it. A girl in ripped jeans and scuffed boots, a black flannel knotted at her waist, and a heavy-lidded stare that cut through people rather than meeting them. Tousled hair, an unreadable face, and not a flicker of awe, only annoyance, like she'd been dragged someplace she had no interest in being. And maybe she had. Sloan blinked. Her smile slipped. Her champagne glass suddenly felt heavy in her hand. Rowan Blake, 24. No credentials, no press. Just ink-stained fingers and a look that said, "You're not impressive just because people say you are." She stood there like she hadn't just walked into a room where everyone was staring at her like she'd broken reality. Hey, if you're enjoying this story, go ahead and drop a like to help us grow even more. And let me know in the comments on a scale from 0 to 10, what score would you give this story so far? Your feedback makes all the difference. Like she hadn't just been declared as a joke. The future spouse of a global icon. The whispers started immediately. Who is she? Did security screw up? Is this part of the show? Sloane's publicist lunged forward to smooth it over, but Rowan raised a hand and said, "Don't touch me." In a voice so flat it could shatter glass. And then she turned to Sloane and said, "You going to follow through? Or was that just rich girl noise?" Sloane stared at her. Her throat dried. The room spun slightly. For a second, all she could think about was how Rowan's voice didn't tremble. How her eyes didn't flinch. How she had never in her life been looked at like that. Not as a product or a fantasy or a lie, but as a challenge. Sloane cleared her throat. The smile she pasted back on was barely holding. "Well, I did say I would marry the next person who walked in." "You did," Rowan said, folding her arms. "So, what's the plan, wife?" Laughter erupted, some amused, some shocked. Sloane felt her team moving in, ready to usher Rowan out and spin the moment. But something in Sloane shifted, cracked, and instead of brushing it off, she said into the mic, "Let's get her a drink," gasps, flashbulbs. Her agent whispered screaming in the background, but Sloane didn't care. For the first time in years, she wasn't acting. Later, in the VIP lounge, somehow, Rowan was sitting across from her, legs stretched out, one eyebrow raised as she sipped from a stolen glass of whiskey. "You really didn't think anyone would take that seriously, did you?" Sloane leaned in. "I've said worse things to fill airtime." "You always talk like that?" Rowan asked, "Like you're bored of your own mouth." Sloane's lip twitched. "You always crash parties just to insult people in designer gowns." "I didn't crash anything. My friend dragged me here." "She's obsessed with you. You were her gay awakening or something." "And you?" Rowan shrugged. "I don't believe in idols, especially not ones who wear masks for a living." That one hit. Sloane's spine straightened. "You think I'm fake?" "I think you're tired," Rowan said simply. "And I think you're surrounded by people who love you more as an image than a person." Sloane hated how accurate that felt. "You know, for someone who doesn't believe in me, you've got a lot of opinions." Rowan stood. "Yeah, I'm opinionated and honest, which is probably why I don't belong here." Sloane stood too, suddenly desperate not to let her leave. "Where do you belong?" Rowan met her eyes anywhere but next to someone too afraid to be real. And then she walked out. No goodbye. No drama. Just gone. Sloane stood in the empty lounge for a long time. Heart pounding in her throat. Glass slipping from her fingers. For the first time in her adult life, someone had seen straight through the gold, through the makeup, through the layers. And for the first time, she wanted to be seen. Sloan Avery didn't get ignored. Not in rooms, not in interviews, not in her own life. People leaned in when she spoke. They blushed. They gushed. They gasped. They didn't walk away with whiskey on their breath and indifference in their eyes. They didn't leave her standing alone, glass slipping from her hand, wondering what the hell just happened. And yet, Rowan Blake had done exactly that. Walked out like none of it mattered, like Sloan hadn't just pulled her into the biggest spotlight in the building, like she wasn't impressed, like she didn't care. Sloan hadn't stopped thinking about it for days. She told herself it was the audacity that bothered her, the arrogance, the attitude. But the truth was louder than that. It was the way Rowan had looked at her, like she saw through the gold and the gloss and the smile carved by media training, like she'd found the real woman behind the glass and hadn't flinched. And now Sloan couldn't stop seeing her either. She replayed the words, the voice, the way Rowan didn't fidget or giggle or try to please. She kept replaying the moment Rowan called her tired and realized it was the truest thing anyone had said to her in years. Tired of pretending, of smiling, of being perfect, and unable to remember how to be anything else. That afternoon, Sloan stood at a Miramar Bluffs photo shoot, posed in couture at a balcony's edge, hair pinned, eyes far away. Her stylist kept fussing with the fabric. The director kept demanding more heat, but Sloan's mind was elsewhere. "We need her to look alive," someone muttered behind the lens. "She looks like a wax figure." Sloan blinked. "I need a break." 5 minutes, her manager snapped. She ignored him and slipped off, phone already in hand. Her thumbs hovered, then moved, to Jules, her assistant, find the girl from the party. Ripped jeans. Name's Rowan Blake. I want a meeting. Private. Send. And then she waited. Hours crawled. The shoot dragged. The interviews dragged worse. That night, in her hotel suite, silk robe on, city glittering beyond the glass, silence pressed at her ribs. At 2:04 a.m., Jules finally texted back, found her. Tatted. Works at the Needle in Willow Ridge. Definitely not a fan. You sure? Sloan stared at the message, then typed, set it up, but don't tell her who's coming. 2 days later, Sloan pushed into the tattoo studio in jeans and a hoodie, no glam, no entourage, just sunglasses and a heart thundering in her ears. The place smelled like ink, leather, heat. The walls blazed with raw, arresting art, wild creatures, sacred emblems, a private intensity no film could capture. At the back, Rowan leaned over a client's arm, gloved hands steady, attention absolute. She hadn't seen Sloan yet, and watching her in her element made something tighten in Sloan's chest. Rowan was real. She didn't know how to be anything else. Minutes later, Rowan stripped off her gloves and headed for the front desk, snagging a water, then looked up and went still. Their eyes met. Sloan pulled off her sunglasses slowly. Rowan's expression didn't change. Not awe, not shock, just a slight tilt of the head. "You're kidding," she said. "You tracked me down. I wanted to talk. Let me guess. Publicity stunt, interview, documentary." "No," Sloan said, "just you." Rowan crossed her arms. "I don't give autographs and I'm not sorry for what I said. I'm not here for an apology." "Then what are you here for?" Sloan stepped closer. Her voice was quieter now. "You called me tired. Because you are. And you walked away. Because I could." Sloan inhaled slowly. "I don't know how to stop performing. Rowan. I don't know how to be real without someone turning it into content." Rowan studied her. "You want real?" Sloan nodded. "Then lose the PR act. Tell me something no one else knows." A long silence stretched between them. The air smelled like antiseptic and electricity. Sloan wet her lips. "Sometimes I stand in my own bathroom and mouth the word help just to see what it looks like. I've never said it out loud." Rowan blinked, then whispered, "Okay, that's real." Sloan exhaled like she'd been underwater. "Why did you walk into that party?" "My best friend won tickets. She made me come. So none of it was planned." "You think I plotted my entrance into your fake marriage stunt?" Sloan almost laughed. "I forgot how blunt you are. And I forgot how full of you are." Sloan's smile faltered. "Then why are we still talking?" Rowan stared at her. "Because I don't believe you're only full of, and if I'm not, then prove it." Sloan took a slow step forward. "Let me take you to dinner." "What? Like a date? No cameras, no press, just me. You don't even know who you are without all of that." "Then help me find out." Rowan didn't respond immediately. She just held Sloan's gaze like she was deciding whether to cut or heal. "One dinner," Rowan said finally. "But if you show up with even a hint of diva energy, I walk. Deal? And if you kiss me, it better not be for a headline." Sloane's voice was a whisper. If I kiss you, it'll be because I can't help it. Rowan blinked, then turned away. Friday 8, don't be late. Sloane left with her pulse in her throat and Rowan's voice echoing in her head. Then prove it. She wasn't just a joke anymore. She was a problem. And Sloane had never wanted anything more in her life. Sloane spent the entire day preparing for the dinner like it was a premiere. Except this time, there would be no cameras, no stylists, no handlers with earpieces and cue cards. Just her, or rather, whatever version of herself hadn't been eaten alive by fame. She wore jeans, real ones, not designer distressed. A soft black tee, no makeup, hair tied back like she hadn't already untied, and retied it 5 times. At 7:58 p.m., she stood outside the tiny Willow Ridge diner. Rowan had texted her the address for a diner, not a rooftop, not a restaurant with a sommelier and 3 forks per setting. Just a metal sign, red booze, and fluorescent lights humming like bad tension. Sloane's heart punched her ribs. Then she walked in. Rowan was already there, leaning against the back of the booth, sipping a soda, her leather jacket draped over the seat. Her eyes found Sloane immediately and didn't widen, didn't soften. Just studied. Calm. Cautious. Sloane slid into the booth. You're early, she said. You're nervous, Rowan replied. Am I that obvious? You weak of trying too hard. Sloane almost smiled. You always this charming on first dates. You always this full of the waitress came. Sloane ordered pancakes. Rowan raised an eyebrow. At night, I needed something honest. Pancakes are honest. They're the only thing I've never lied about liking. Rowan paused, then laughed just once, sharp and unexpected. Okay, that was almost cute. They ate. They talked. Rowan did most of the asking. Sloane answered every question with hesitation first, then honesty. She talked about growing up with a mother who thought tears ruined mascara. About kissing her first girl in the back of a trailer on set at 16 and being told it could never happen again. About her first PR-crafted boyfriend. She told her, about the third one, about the therapist she paid for and never called, about how quiet terrified her more than a shout. Rowan didn't cut in. She just listened. And when Sloane said, some nights I'm not even sure I like being alive, Rowan reached across the table and touched her wrist. Not a grab, not theater, just steady pressure. Real. Here. Sloane swallowed. Sorry. Too much. No, Rowan said. Just honest. Keep going. By the time they stepped out, it was after 11. Sloane stood outside the diner with her hands jammed in her pockets, staring up like the sky could grant permission. Rowan shot her a look. You waiting on something? For you to tell me if I passed. Passed what? The test. Rowan moved closer. There isn't a test. There's only this. Sloane met her eyes. What is this? Messy. Complicated. Unexpected. Is that bad? Only if you're afraid. I'm terrified, Sloane whispered. Rowan brushed a stray strand from Sloane's face. Then stop pretending you're not. Their faces were inches apart. The air felt like a lit match waiting. Don't look at me like that unless you mean it, Rowan said, voice low. I do. I'm Sloane Avery, and I'm exhausted. This isn't a movie. I don't want it to be. Rowan searched her gaze and, finally, leaned in and kissed her. Not gentle, not slow, but like something broke loose, like the whole night had held its breath and could breathe again. Sloane fisted Rowan's jacket, tugged her close, and answered with all the hunger she'd been taught to bury. The kiss was chaos, honest, clumsy, desperate. And when they broke apart, breathless, Sloane said, that wasn't for a headline. I know, Rowan said. That was for me. They stood there for a moment, not touching, just looking. And Sloane felt something dangerous rise in her, something that tasted like hope. Will I see you again? She asked. Do you want to? Yes. Then don't disappear. Rowan turned and started walking. Sloane watched her go, heartburning. She didn't know what this was, but for the first time in years, she wanted more. The kiss had settled somewhere in Sloane's bloodstream, still burning 3 days later, like a secret drug she couldn't name. She hadn't told anyone about the diner, not her assistant, not her agent, not the woman she paid to keep her calendar in order, and her image intact. It belonged to her. Rowan belonged to no one else now. Not as a headline, not as a stunt, not as another role to play. She kept checking her phone. Not obsessively, just enough to hate herself for it. No new message. She refused to be the first to text. She didn't even know why. Ego, fear, that familiar ache of wanting something that could vanish if she reached too fast. Then on a Thursday afternoon during a promotional interview for a new streaming series she no longer cared about, the interviewer leaned forward, fake smile sharp as a blade. So Sloan, rumors say you've been seen out with someone new. Mystery girl in flannel. Want to comment? The blood drained from Sloane's face, but she smiled. Trained. Impeccable. I'm not dating anyone at the moment. Then who's the girl you kissed outside that diner in Willow Ridge? The silence that followed was atomic. Her manager off camera made a slicing gesture with her hand. Cut it. Change it. But the damage was done. Sloane's mind raced. Paparazzi. How? How the hell had someone know? Who the hell had leaked it? Rowan hadn't told a soul that much. Sloane knew. The kiss had been too real for Rowan to cheapen. So, it had to be someone else. Someone who followed Sloane, who was always watching. Sloane ended the interview early, feigning fatigue. She called Rowan 3 times. No answer. She left a voice message. I didn't tell anyone. I swear. Please don't disappear. And then she waited. Nothing. Days passed. The media storm built fast. Social feeds erupted. Sloane's secret girl. Tattooed rebel mystery woman. Queer Hollywood's new power couple. Articles dissected Rowan's every public photo, digging into her past, her social media, her shop, her tattoos, her clients. Reporters camped outside Blackfinch Inc. Someone threw paint on the windows. Rowan went silent online, completely vanished. Sloane didn't care about the show she was promoting or the endorsements or the carefully crafted posts her team kept uploading. All she could think about was Rowan. Whether she was okay, whether she hated her, whether this one real thing Sloane had built was already being crushed by everything she'd spent her life constructing. On Sunday at 1:14 a.m., Sloane drove herself. No driver, no security to Willow Ridge. The shop was closed, lights off, but a door at the back was cracked open. She hesitated, then pushed through into the studio that smelled of paper dust and turpentine. Rowan sat on a paint-splattered stool, fingers ink black, eyes on a half-finished sketch taped to the wall. When she finally looked up, there was no surprise, no anger, just the kind of exhaustion that lives in the bones. You shouldn't be here, Rowan said. I needed to see you, Sloane answered, breath unsteady, and risk more photos. Rowan's laugh was small and sharp. Easy to say when your team gets paid to clean up your mess. This wasn't a mess. No? Rowan stood. Every muscle drew tight. My business is tanking. Clients cancel because they don't want to guest star in a lesbian drama circus. Strangers send death threats for corrupting America's sweetheart. Sloane flinched. I didn't ask for this, but it happened, Rowan cut in. And now I'm the girl who kissed the actress and ruined her brand. Sloane stepped closer. No. You're the girl who made me feel alive. Rowan's jaw locked. Then you should have protected it better. I didn't even know there were cameras. Of course you didn't, Rowan said softly, bitter as ink. You never have to think about that. I do. Sloane stepped forward. I never wanted to hurt you. Then stop pretending you didn't. Silence. Heavy. Sharp. Real. Sloane's voice cracked. Tell me what to do. There's nothing you can do. That can't be true. It is. You live in a world that devours people like me. Then let me burn it down. You won't. I will, Sloane said louder now. I will go on record. I will name you. I will stand beside you. Rowan narrowed her eyes. And when the producers pull your next lead role, then I'll write my own movie. And when your publicist quits, then I'll hire someone who understands the cost of truth. Rowan shook her head. You're not built for this. Sloane stepped in close, chest heaving. I wasn't, but I am now. Rowan looked up at her. Her voice dropped. Why are you doing this? Sloane didn't blink. Because I'm tired of being invisible. And when I kissed you, I wasn't. Something flickered in Rowan's expression. Softness. Wreckage. Hope. You're still not, she whispered. Sloane reached out, fingers brushing Rowan's. Let me try again. Try what? Being me with you. Rowan looked at their hands, then met her eyes. One condition, anything. You tell the world who I am. Sloane nodded. Not just who you are. What you mean to me? Rowan stepped closer. And what do I mean to you? Sloan breathed in slowly. You mean I finally want something I'm willing to lose everything for? Rowan didn't kiss her. Not yet. But she didn't step away either. And in the space between them, something new began. Quiet, defiant, unbreakable. The press conference was scheduled for Thursday at 11 a.m. Sloane's team fought her the whole way. Her agent threatened to walk. Her publicist begged her to reconsider. Even Jules, the most loyal assistant she'd ever had, said, "Are you absolutely sure about this? You won't get this moment back." But Sloane had never been more sure of anything. She was done hiding, done performing, done letting the story of her life be told by people who didn't even know what her real laugh sounded like. She arrived at the venue in jeans and a simple black button-down. No makeup, no diamonds, no image, just her. Her palms were sweating. Her heart was a riot in her chest. But her voice, when it came, was steady. "I know you're all here because of a photo," she said, standing at the podium with 1,000 lenses staring her down. "A photo of me kissing a woman outside a diner. And I know you're expecting a denial, a clarification, a PR reset. That's not going to happen." The crowd shifted, murmurs like bees in a jar. Some leaned forward, hungry. Others crossed their arms, already carving headlines into stone. Sloane held the mic a little tighter. "Her name is Rowan Blake." A sharp inhale rolled across the room. The name, finally loosed. "She isn't an actress or a singer or a brand. She's a tattoo artist. She doesn't care about fame. She didn't want this attention." Flashbulbs popped. A reporter shot up a hand. Sloane didn't look their way. "I kissed her. I asked for nothing to be cut from the footage. I asked my publicist to stand down. If you're looking for a villain, stop dragging her through your scripts and point your cameras at me." Silence pressed in, brittle as glass. "You want a clarification?" Sloane said, steady now. "Here it is. I like the way she laughs when ink smudges her knuckles. I like the quiet in her studio, the way she asks, 'Are you sure?' Like consent is a ritual." Another flurry of clicks. "If my brand can't hold that truth, then it isn't a brand worth having." A voice called out, "What about your wholesome image?" Sloane's mouth twitched. "Wholesome isn't a lie. It's incomplete. It never included the women I loved because it was safer for you that way. Not anymore." She set her notes aside. They fluttered like startled birds. "To the clients who canceled on her, you don't get to pretend neutrality while you punish her. To the people sending threats, I'll be forwarding them to my legal team. To everyone asking whether this was a stunt, the only stunt here was me trying to live two lives and expecting no one to get hurt." Sloane let the mic drift a fraction from her lips, then pulled it back. "Rowan Blake is not a scandal. She is a person. If you want a statement, print this: I'm done apologizing for loving women. And I will not let you destroy the woman who loved me back." She stepped away from the podium, light washing over her like a verdict, and for the first time all night, the room couldn't decide whether to clap or listen harder. "And if I'd been braver, you wouldn't even know her name right now. But I wasn't brave. Not then. So now I'm doing what I should have done from the beginning." She took a breath, looked directly at the cameras. "I kissed her because I wanted to, not for press, not for optics, not because I was drunk or lonely or trying to make a point. I kissed her because I could not kiss her." Silence. Even the photographers had stopped clicking. Sloane's hands trembled, but she kept going. "You all know me as Sloane Avery, the woman who smiles on command, who says all the right things, who dates the right men and walks the right carpets and never ever messes up. But the truth is, I've been hiding not just from you. From myself, from what I want, from who I love, from who I am. And I'm tired." She looked down for a second. Let it sit, let it sink, then lifted her chin. "So, let me say this clearly. One time without a script. I'm queer. I'm in love with a woman. Her name is Rowan Blake. And I'm not hiding anymore." The room erupted. Questions were shouted. Flashbulbs fired. Some faces showed shock, others admiration, others barely disguised disgust. Sloane didn't wait for questions. She stepped down from the podium and walked out the side door. Heart thundering, vision swimming. But feeling for the first time clean. No handlers, no fake smile, just her truth finally spoken. When she got to the car, her phone was already lighting up like fire. Missed calls, interview requests, statements from her PR team already circulating. One text from her mother. "We'll talk." But none of it mattered compared to the one message she hadn't seen yet. Rowan. She stared at the screen. Waited nothing for hours. Nothing until finally at 8:47 p.m. a single message arrived from Rowan Blake. "You really said my name?" Sloan read it 3 times before replying. "Yes, I said your name and I meant every syllable." A minute passed, then another. "Then come to the shop." She was already out the door. The city passed in a blur. When she arrived at the studio, it was empty except for one light in the back. She walked in, heart in her throat. Rowan stood by the wall of sketches, arms folded, a glass of bourbon in one hand. She didn't say anything as Sloan approached. Just looked. "I didn't warn you," Sloan said quietly. "Because I didn't want you to talk me out of it." "I wouldn't have," Rowan said. I needed to see it for myself." "Did you?" Rowan nodded. "You didn't flinch." "I didn't." "You were brave." "I had something to lose," Sloan said. "And I still said your name." Rowan stared at her. "Why?" "Because you make me want to deserve you." The glass slipped from Rowan's hand and hit the floor, but neither of them noticed the shatter. Sloan crossed the space between them in 2 breaths, her hands on Rowan's face, her mouth already searching. Rowan kissed her back like a dam breaking. Months of tension, anger, hope, fear. It wasn't soft. It wasn't careful. It was alive. They stumbled into the back room, knocking over a stool, hands under clothes, teeth against lips. Sloan had been kissed 1,000 times in her life, on screen, on stages, at parties, but never like this. Never like it mattered. Never like she mattered. They collapsed onto the worn couch and Rowan pulled back breathless. "Are you sure?" Sloan nodded, eyes burning. "I've never been more sure of anything." And then there was only skin and breath and the sound of them finding each other in all the places that used to be hollow. Later, wrapped in a blanket and sweat, Rowan whispered, "You're not invisible anymore." Sloan pressed her forehead to hers. "That's because you saw me first." Outside, the world was already spinning. But inside, in that quiet corner of a tattoo shop filled with ink and fire and truth, they didn't have to perform. They could just be. Morning came like a dare. Harsh, loud, unrelenting. Sloan had slept wrapped in Rowan's arms, the scent of ink and warmth clinging to her skin like something sacred. It should have been perfect. It felt perfect. But by 7 a.m., her phone was vibrating nonstop. The screen lighting up with damage control. Missed calls from her manager, texts from studio lawyers. Statements drafted without her consent. Interview cancellations, brand deals on pause. Board members demanding meetings, and one notification stood out like blood and water. Sloan Avery loses major fragrance campaign after coming out as queer. She locked the phone face down as if that could stop reality from seeping through the cracks. Rowan stirred beside her, blinking awake slowly. "Bad morning," Sloan tried to smile, but it cracked halfway through. "World's on fire." "Yeah," Rowan said, voice rough. "But you look good in smoke." That made Sloan actually laugh. Quiet, breathy, tired. Rowan sat up, pulling on her shirt, watching Sloan like she already knew what was coming. "So, what happens now?" Sloan swallowed. "I have to go in. They want a meeting." "Who's they?" "Everyone I work for. Everyone who thinks I belong to them." Rowan looked away. "And do you?" "Not anymore. But you're still going." "I have to." Sloan stood pulling her hair into a messy bun, grabbing her hoodie from the back of the couch. This doesn't go away just because I walk into a boardroom." Rowan didn't answer immediately. She leaned back, arms crossed, the familiar wall building in her eyes. "You sure they won't make you walk out of this?" Sloan walked over, cooped her jaw. "They might try, but I won't let them. Don't make promises you can't keep." Sloan kissed her slow and steady like she needed Rowan to remember it later. "I don't promise unless I plan to fight for it." When she left the studio, paparazzi were waiting. Dozens of flashbulbs, shouted questions, about her sexuality, Rowan, her supposed fall from grace, her future. Sloan kept her chin lifted and said nothing, knowing the images would be everywhere by nightfall. Inside Apex Tower, tension had its own pulse. Her agent looked ready to detonate. Her publicist wore bruised half-moons under her eyes. And the executive room brimmed with men in suits who wouldn't recognize truth if it punched through their glass table. "Sloan," began the head of the streaming platform, voice smooth to calm. "We support your identity, but the way this unfolded has been damaging." "Damaging to who?" Sloan asked, her voice flat. To our investors. To your brand alignment. There are family audiences to consider. You mean straight audiences? We mean commercial viability, another executive cut in. We've lost partnerships. The fragrance deal is gone. The awards panel is reconsidering your eligibility after your activist behavior. Cold slid through her veins. My activist behavior. Standing at a podium and announcing a relationship with a civilian while effectively outing yourself without peer oversight, he coughed. It's the disruption. Sloan rose. Good. She paused at the door. Excuse me. She looked back once. Good. It should be disruptive. I'm done playing safe for people who'd rather have a dead version of me than a real one. Her agent hissed. Sloan, we can't afford to burn everything down. Then watch me, she snapped. Because I'm not the only one who's been silent for too long. She left before they could stop her. Outside, the sky was the color of steel, heavy with something that hadn't broken yet. Sloan drove straight back to Rowan's. She needed grounding. Needed her. But when she pushed open the door to the studio, the lights were off. The back was empty. On the table, a note, one line. I don't want to be your weakness. Sloan froze. Her pulse thudded like a scream in her chest. She read it again and again. She pulled out her phone, dialed straight to voicemail, texted. No reply. No, 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 she whispered, her vision blurred. Rowan was gone. Sloan sat on the floor, back against the wall, heart caving in on itself. Everything she had just fought for, stood for, risked for. It meant nothing if Rowan walked away. Not because of fear, but because she believed she was a burden, a liability, a weakness. Sloan hated the world for doing that to her, for making a woman like Rowan feel like her love was dangerous. The next day, Sloan canceled every meeting, every event. She got in her car and drove for hours until she reached Sea Break Point. She found the small beach Rowan once mentioned loving as a kid. And she waited, watched the water crash against the rocks like it was trying to rewrite the land. And then just as the sun was starting to drop, she saw her Rowan standing at the edge of the cliff. Hoodie pulled tight, hands in her pockets. Sloan didn't call out, just walked to her slowly, each step a prayer. You left, Sloan said, voice. I was scared, Rowan admitted. Of me, of what I do to you, of who I turn you into. I didn't want to be the reason you lost everything. Sloan reached for her hand, gripped it. Then stay and help me build something new. I don't want perfect anymore. I want us. Rowan's voice cracked. Tell me we survive this. We will if you don't run. Rowan looked down. People are still going to hate me. Then we let them and we keep going anyway. What if it gets worse? Then we get stronger. A long silence. Then Rowan whispered, You really came all the way out here just for me? No, Sloan said. I came for us. Rowan finally met her eyes. And nodded. Okay, then let's go home. Sloan exhaled, her grip tightening on Rowan's hand like she would never let go again. The first week back felt like a dream they weren't sure they were allowed to have. Sloan stayed at Rowan's small apartment above the studio, sleeping on mismatched sheets that smelled like clean cotton and black ink. She helped Rowan open the shop every morning, swept the floors, learned how to make coffee without scanning a menu first. They laughed over burnt toast. They kissed in between silence and soft jazz. Sloan had never known something so simple could feel so complete. But simplicity didn't make the world disappear. And love, for all its warmth, didn't erase the cracks already forming underneath. Sloan was used to hiding. Rowan was used to bracing, and neither of them had ever truly been chosen without condition. On the 8th morning, Rowan was drawing at the back of the shop, headphones in, sleeves rolled up, when Sloan stood in the doorway holding her phone, face pale. They're leaking my emails. Rowan pulled the headphones off. What? From the studio execs from my agent. Private messages. They're framing it like I manipulated you for PR. That her voice cracked. That I used you to rebrand. Rowan stood slowly. They're trying to erase the truth. They're trying to destroy you. I don't matter to them. You matter to me. That's not what I meant. Sloan crossed the room, her whole body buzzing with panic. I need to release a statement. Not some PR polish nonsense. My words. Rowan hesitated. Are you sure that's smart? I'm past smart. Sloan, no. She snapped. Don't start pulling away. Rowan's jaw tightened. I'm not. Yes, you are. Every time it gets messy, you start preparing to leave because leaving is the only thing that's ever protected me. Rowan's voice cracked open raw and loud. People like you always choose the story over the truth, the brand over the person, and I'm not going to be the background casualty in your rise or fall. Sloan stepped back like she'd been hit. Is that really what you think of me? Rowan's chest rose and fell, the fury fading, grief surfacing. I think I'm scared. And I think you are, too. Sloane's voice softened. I'm terrified, of losing you, of not being enough, of finally being honest and still having it fall short. Rowan looked away. I don't know how to be loved like this. Then let me learn with you. You can't fix me with flowers and press conferences. I'm not trying to fix you. I'm trying to stay. The quiet stretched, too long, until Rowan sat back at her desk, slid out a blank sheet of sketch paper, and said, almost whispering, say what you need to say. Don't filter it. Don't make it pretty. Make it true. Sloane held her gaze and nodded. That night, Sloane sat cross-legged on Rowan's living room floor, laptop open, hair a mess, glasses slipping down her nose, a blanket around her shoulders like armor. She stared at the screen, typed, erased, typed again, and finally wrote, to everyone watching, this isn't PR. It isn't spin. It's a confession. I fell in love with someone who doesn't care about my spotlight. She never asked for it, never wanted it. She only wanted me to show up and mean it. So I am. This is me, unfiltered. This is what love looks like when it's afraid and still chooses to stay. Her name is Rowan. She isn't my mistake, she's my mirror. My reminder. My reason. I'm not an actress tonight. I'm just a girl in love. And I won't apologize for that. She hit post and closed the laptop. Outside, everything was already shifting, comments detonating, hashtags climbing, opinions flying like knives. Inside, Sloane slipped into bed beside Rowan and held her, no makeup, no spotlight, just skin, warmth, and a heartbeat that finally felt like it had a home. At 3:17 a.m., Sloane whispered into the dark, don't love me in pieces. Rowan's hand found hers under the blanket. Then stop giving me pieces. I want all of you. Sloane turned to her. You have me, even when it gets worse. Especially then. Rowan kissed her. Slow deep. And for the first time, neither of them was waiting for the other to leave. The next time Sloane's mother called, it wasn't to talk. It was to demand. We need to meet, she said over the phone, voice sharp as cut glass. In person, Sloane hesitated. I'm busy. I'm already on my way to your house in the hills. Don't make me wait. The line went dead before she could argue. Rowan was in the kitchen of their borrowed piece, barefoot, scribbling something into a sketch pad with the tip of her tongue tucked into her cheek. Sloane stared at her for a long moment, memorizing the softness, the realness. My mother's coming, she said. Rowan didn't look up. Sounds like a thriller. She's difficult. She raised you in Hollywood. That much I can guess. She doesn't know how to love things she can't control. Rowan's pencil paused. You think she'll blame me? Sloane crossed the room. She'll blame me for not being the version of me she spent years building. Rowan turned. Then tell her the new version doesn't need her permission. Sloane smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. I want to be brave, but when she's in front of me, then I'll be there, too. Sloane blinked. What? I'm not hiding in your shadow. Not for anyone. Not even your mother. 2 hours later, Rowan walked into Sloane's glass mansion wearing ripped jeans, combat boots, and the sharpest look Sloane had ever seen on her. She was beautiful and unapologetic. Sloane's mother, Evelyn Vale, queen of restraint, flawless in a beige silk suit and heels that cost more than Rowan's rent, stood by the marble kitchen island, sipping an espresso she hadn't asked permission to make. Her eyes flicked up, cold, calculating. So she said, this is the reason you've thrown your career into chaos. Sloane stiffened. Rowan didn't flinch. No, she is the reason I stopped pretending. Evelyn set the cup down slowly. You used to be so good at smiling, so good at being manageable. I used to be miserable. You think this little phase will make you happy? It's not a phase, Sloane said quietly. It's love. You don't know what that word means. Rowan finally stepped forward. You think she doesn't know love just because you never showed her any? Evelyn's eyes sharpened. And you think you can walk into her life tattooed and uncultured and call yourself worthy of her? I don't need your approval to be worthy, Rowan said calmly. Because she already chose me and I chose her. That's the only thing that matters. You'll destroy her. No, Rowan said, voice like steel. I'll protect her from people who confuse control with care. Sloan stared, throat tight, heart racing. Mom, you need to leave. You're making the biggest mistake of your life. No, Sloan said, stepping beside Rowan. The mistake would be letting you keep deciding who I'm allowed to be. Evelyn picked up her purse like it weighed nothing, but her eyes were full of something darker. Bitterness or maybe fear. When this falls apart, don't call me. I never will again. The door slammed. Silence followed. Sloan was trembling. Rowan wrapped her arms around her from behind. You did it. She's going to hate me forever. She already did. Now she just can't pretend she didn't. Sloan turned. Thank you for saying what I couldn't. You owe me dinner. Rowan smirked. And sex. Lots of both. Sloan actually laughed. Deep relieved real. That night, Sloan posted another photo. No filter, no caption, just Rowan's hand in hers. Their wrists inked and intertwined. It went viral in minutes. The comment section split down the middle. Unfollowed. Disgusting. This is the most honest thing I've seen all year. You're losing everything for a phase. You're winning something better. Sloan didn't reply to any of them because she didn't need to. The next morning, a magazine article dropped. A smear piece. Who is Rowan Blake really? Scandals from her past reveal. They pulled records from a bar fight when she was 20. A drunk ex's claim. A tattoo client who didn't like their finished piece and wanted revenge. They're digging, Sloan said, voice shaking. Rowan sat down on the couch, calm. Let them. It's not fair. Of course it's not. They want to turn you into something dirty. Then let them see what dirty looks like when it fights back. Sloan sat beside her. This is going to get uglier. Then hold my hand when it does. Sloan reached for her, gripped hard. You don't belong to the press. I belong to no one. You belong to me, Sloan whispered. And I belong to you. Rowan leaned in. Say it again. You're mine. The kiss was soft, fierce, claimed. And it didn't matter who was watching anymore. The article spread like poison. Within hours, Rowan's face was everywhere, framed by ugly headlines, twisted phrases, and pixelated mugs shot from years ago that looked nothing like her now. Sloane's new lover has a violent past. Rowan Blake, tatted, troubled, and tearing down Hollywood's golden girl. From bar fights to bedroom secrets, who is Rowan Blake really? Sloan watched the chaos unfold with clenched fists and burning eyes. But Rowan just stared at the screen with a blank expression, jaw tight, legs crossed on the edge of the couch, a glass of whiskey untouched beside her. Say something, Sloan whispered. Tell me this doesn't hurt you. Rowan blinked slowly. Of course it does. Then why do you look so detached? Because if I let myself feel all of it, I'll start breaking things. Sloan dropped to her knees in front of her, then break them with me. Rowan finally looked at her, and the exhaustion in her eyes wasn't weakness. It was fury restrained. They're trying to scare me into disappearing. Make you regret choosing me. That's impossible. You say that now. I'll say it tomorrow, too. Rowan cooped her cheek. You know what the worst part is? What? None of it's even a lie. I was arrested. I was angry. I made mistakes. I regret. Sloan leaned into her touch. Good. That means you're real. You don't care that they're using it against you. They don't have me. You do. Rowan stood abruptly. Then we don't hide. We don't wait for it to blow over. We push back. How? By owning it. You said you wanted to be real, so let's show them what real looks like. Sloane's phone buzzed, her publicist again. No doubt ready with another public apology. A gentle step back from the scandal. Sloan let it ring. Rowan paced, thoughts clearly racing. You've got that interview with Nina Calderon next week, right? Sloan nodded. She thinks it's just routine, new series, awards chatter. Make it something else. Go live. Say everything. Me. Us. The truth. Sloan hesitated. Nina's show reaches millions. Exactly. Let them hear it from you. No statements, no posts, no polished captions, just you. Sloan rose. Okay. But only if you're beside me. Rowan stopped. Wait, what? I want you on that stage. On that couch. I'm not talking about you like you're theoretical. I've never been on camera. I freeze in photos. Then we'll freeze together. Rowan was quiet for a long beat, eyes on hers. You're serious? I'm in love with you. That's as serious as I get. Rowan exhaled. Then let's do it. On the day of the interview, they arrived hand in hand. The crew scrambled at the sight of Rowan, tattoos unhidden, boots scuffed, no makeup, no patience for pretense. Nina Calderon, cool as ever, questions like scalpels, looked them over with thin curiosity. This isn't what we planned, she said backstage. Sloan smiled. No. It's better. When the cameras went live and the lights hit, Sloane's heart hammered like war drums. Nina opened with the usual, career peaks, award buzz, upcoming roles. Sloane played along for a while. Then halfway through, Nina tilted her head and said, Sloane, let's talk about the woman everyone's been asking about, the headlines, the backlash. What do you want to say about Rowan Blake? Sloane smiled. Not the Hollywood kind. The Rowan kind. The kind she learned in a diner over pancakes. I want to say she's not a phase. She's not a mistake. She's not someone I need to explain or defend. She's the love of my life. Nina blinked. The audience gasped. Sloane looked into the camera and she's here with me. She reached off camera and Rowan walked into frame. Slowly, tense, strong, real. The audience went dead silent. Sloane held Rowan's hand, pulled her close. You want a scandal? She said, voice like wildfire. Then let's start with the truth. I fell in love with a woman who has lived more honestly than anyone I've ever met. She has scars and they're beautiful. She has a past and she survived it. And anyone who tries to shame her for that is just afraid of their own reflection. Nina leaned intrigued. Rowan, do you want to say anything? Rowan looked into the camera like it might bite. Then she spoke. I don't belong in your world. I didn't grow up rich. I didn't grow up safe. But I know what love feels like when it's real. And I'd rather be hated for being real than loved for being fake. The audience erupted. Applause, cheering. One person stood, then another. Rowan blinked, stunned. Sloane squeezed her hand. Let them choke on the truth, she whispered. Rowan kissed her on live television. It was raw, soft, tender. And when they pulled apart, the world couldn't look away. Not anymore. It was supposed to be over. After the interview, Sloane and Rowan thought the worst had passed. The kiss on live television went viral in seconds, resharing millions of times. Reactions poured in, some vile, yes, but more powerful than the hate were the voices rising in support. Fans who'd never seen someone like Rowan on screen. Queer kids who finally felt like someone wasn't just pretending. And people who never cared about celebrity gossip crying in their living rooms because someone finally told the damn truth. Sloane's team, half of them quit. The other half tried to pivot, spinning the moment as a bold new era. But Sloane didn't care anymore. She wasn't building a brand now. She was building a life. And for the first time, Rowan was part of every room she walked into. No longer hidden, no longer blurred out in photos. They went to a fundraiser together. Hand in hand, Rowan wore black, sleek, sharp, unapologetic. Sloane wore a tuxedo-style dress and a smile that wasn't rehearsed. People stared. Of course they did. But they didn't look away. And neither did Sloane. That night, Rowan whispered against her ear. You realize we just walked through fire and didn't burn? Sloane whispered back. We don't break. We bend toward each other and for a few days the world softened, but fire never dies quietly. It just changes shape. The first blow came from inside. Sloane's next lead role, one she'd already signed contracts for, was pulled. Creative differences, the official statement read. In reality, the studio had folded under pressure from conservative investors. Her queer identity wasn't the problem, they said. But the media circus was the distraction. Sloane laughed when she read it. Then she cried. Then she called Rowan. They took it, she said. Voice brittle. The movie, the role I've been chasing for 3 years. Rowan didn't say, I told you so. She just said, come home. But Sloane didn't go home. Not right away. She went to the ocean, sat on the hood of her car, stared at the dark waves, and tried to breathe past the ache in her chest. She'd known the cost, but knowing and feeling were two different things. When she finally walked into the studio at nearly midnight, Rowan didn't ask questions. She just pulled her close and held her like she was afraid if she let go, Sloane would break into too many pieces to catch. I'm scared, Sloane whispered. Me too, Rowan said. What if this ruins everything? Sloan asked. Then we build something else. Something they can't tear down. The next day, Rowan had an idea. A wild one. Dangerous. Beautiful. What if we make our story? Sloan blinked. You mean like a film? Not just a film, Rowan said. A truth written by you, shot by people who believe in it. Starring someone who knows what it feels like to be erased. No studio would touch it. Then we don't use a studio. Sloan hesitated. You really think we can pull that off? I think the world needs something real, and you're the only one who can give it to them. And for the first time in weeks, Sloan felt hope. The idea grew quickly. Sloan wrote every night, scribbled on napkins, dictated notes into her phone, woke Rowan up at 3 a.m. just to ask, would this line feel honest to you? Rowan became her compass, her fire starter, her partner. The script took shape. Raw, queer, messy, vulnerable. A story about an actress who falls in love with a woman the world tells her she shouldn't. A story about choosing love over image. About burning down the stage to build something real. When they were done, they sent it to exactly 5 people, queer filmmakers, independent producers, allies who had nothing left to prove and everything to say. And one by one, the calls came back. Yes. Yes. Hell yes. Sloan was producing it herself. Rowan was doing the art direction, and neither of them was asking permission. But the closer they got to building something true, the more the old world fought back. Tabloids published new lies. Sloan's downward spiral. Rowan's manipulative grip on Hollywood's sweetheart. Old videos were resurfaced. Comment sections became war zones. And then the leak happened. Someone got a hold of an early draft of a script. It spread online with twisted headlines. Sloan Avery makes movie glorifying her own scandal. Lesbian love story exposes industry bias. Critics call it narcissistic. Sloan was livid. They stole something sacred. She hissed, pacing the studio. They're not just attacking me. They're attacking us. Rowan caught her hand. Then let them choke on the truth. What if it destroys the film? Then we tell the story anyway. And what if it destroys me? Rowan leaned in, eyes fierce. Then I'll build you back piece by piece as many times as it takes. Sloan broke, tears hot and silent down her cheeks. Why are you still here? Because you never asked me to be perfect. And I never needed you to be anything but yours. They held each other in the middle of the storm. 2 women against an empire. But the thing about empires is they fall. And truth doesn't burn. It rises. The first day on set wasn't grand. There were no cranes, no $1 million trailers, no stylists adjusting perfect collars. It was a warehouse in East LA with exposed pipes flickering overhead lights, a borrowed camera rig, and a crew held together by pure belief. Sloan stood in front of the lens holding the first printed page of the script. Her script, their story, the story they tried to bury. Rowan was across the room in black jeans and a tank top, holding a lighting reflector in one hand and a granola bar in the other. Her hair was tied back. Her focus was lethal. Sloan had never seen someone make chaos look so holy. The director, a queer woman named Soraya Khan with a buzz cut and gold nose ring, clapped her hands once. Okay, team. We're not here to make Hollywood happy. We're here to make truth. Let's roll. The cameras started, the lights glowed. Sloan stepped into the scene, the first one of the movie. It was a version of the night she met Rowan, reimagined, rewritten, but real. In the script, she plays an actress hiding in a bathroom after a press meltdown. The door opens. A woman walks in. Not glamorous, not dressed for the spotlight, just real. You don't look like you belong here, Sloan says in character. Neither do you, the other woman replies. Sloan delivered the line with shaking breath. When the scene ended, the room was silent. Then Soraya whispered, cut. And someone in the back clapped. Then another, then everyone. Sloan looked at Rowan across the room. The whole world could burn. But this was alive, but not everyone was cheering. That afternoon, Sloan received an email. Subject line, cease and desist, breach of contract. It was from her former agency. They were threatening to sue if she continued associating her public persona with the unauthorized use of biographical material. In short, they were trying to say she didn't own her own story. Sloan slammed the laptop shut. They want to erase me. Rowan crossed the room. Then let's make it impossible. Sloan's voice cracked. They're threatening to bankrupt me. They can't bankrupt your truth. That night, Sloan recorded a video on her phone. No filter, no lighting setup, just her. On the floor of their tiny rented apartment, hoodie pulled over her head. She uploaded it with the caption, "They want to shut me up. Here's why I won't." In the video, she spoke directly to the camera. "I'm not just telling my story for me anymore. I'm telling it for every queer girl who is told to sit down, to quiet her voice, to dim her love so she could be tolerated. I'm not interested in tolerance. I want truth. I want fire. And if we burn, let it be bright enough to wake them." The video went nuclear. Millions of views in 12 hours. Celebrities shared it. Fans cried. LGBTQ+ organizations reached out with support. Studio execs stayed silent. Of course, they did because silence was their armor, but Sloan had shed hers. The next day on set, Rowan surprised her with something. A tattoo gun. "What's this?" Sloan asked, blinking. "You said you wanted to mark this moment. So, I designed something only if you want it." Sloan sat, pulled her shirt off one shoulder. Rowan cleaned the skin gently, slowly, reverently, and then she inked a small symbol, half flame, half heart, just above Sloan's ribs. "This means you don't belong to them anymore," Rowan whispered. Sloan kissed her the second the machine clicked off. Deep, silent, thankful. The movie moved forward like a revolution disguised as a love letter. Queer artists joined the team. Small donations came pouring in. Independent theaters pledged to show it before the edit was even finished. Sloan's lawyer warned her, "They're not going to take this lying down." She replied, "Good. Maybe if they stand up, they'll finally see us." Then came the next strike. A smear campaign against the film's investors, fake stories, false allegations, emails leaked out of context, sponsors pulled out, their editor quit overnight after receiving threats. Rowan walked into the bedroom to find Sloan staring at the wall, shoulders shaking, phone on the floor. "They're killing us," Sloan whispered. "No, baby," Rowan said, climbing into her lap. "They're scared of us. That means we're doing something right." Sloan buried her face in Rowan's neck. "I don't know how much more I can lose." Rowan took her face in her hands. "Then let me be the thing you never lose." Sloan stared at her. "Stay. No matter how ugly this gets, I've seen ugly. I survived it. But you," Rowan kissed her slowly. "You're the most beautiful fight I've ever picked." They went back to work with fewer people, less money, more fury. The final scene was shot at dawn on a rooftop in the city that tried to eat them alive. Sloan stood in the middle of it, bruised but breathing, with Rowan behind the camera. The last line of the film wasn't in the script. Sloan looked straight into the lens and said, "This is not the end. This is just the first time I get to tell my own story, and I'm not giving it back." Rowan clicked the camera off. And no one said cut because nothing was ending. Everything was beginning. The premiere wasn't held at a Hollywood theater. There were no golden ropes, no champagne flutes balanced on silver trays. Instead, they chose a reclaimed theater in Quartz Lake, an old indie cinema with peeling red seats, walls painted by queer street artists, and a roof that leaked when it rained. Rowan fell for it instantly. "It smells like rebellion," she said, tugging Sloan's hand as they slipped in before the doors opened. "It smells like popcorn and holy defiance," Sloan answered with a grin that didn't quite reach her eyes. She hadn't slept in days. Neither had Rowan. The attacks hadn't stopped, only shifted shape, quieter, sharper. Sponsors wavering at the 11th hour. Legal threats dressed up as courteous reminders. Journalists angling for quotes not to celebrate the film, but to puncture it. Still, the house was sold out. 300 seats gone in minutes. Lines coiled around the block. People in shirts reading, "Let her speak." Queer and unapologetic. Rowan Blake had been right. Sloan had never seen anything like it, and yet dread still coiled low in her spine like a lit fuse. In the green room, Rowan straightened Sloan's collar, fingertips grazing the clean edge of her jaw. "They'll try to spin it," Sloan whispered. "Call it a stunt. Say it's all ego." "Then let them," Rowan murmured, pressing her forehead to Sloan's. "Let them shout. We've already won." Sloan didn't cry, but she nearly did. At 7:01 p.m., the lights fell. The theater hushed. Sloan and Rowan slipped into the last row, their fingers laced tight. The credits began, one low, raw chord, and then, written by Sloan Avery, inspired by truth. It started quietly, the story unspooling with rough-edged tenderness. A girl, a secret, a kiss that wasn't supposed to matter and altered everything. Gasps moved through the room at the bare scenes. Laughter surfaced in places no one expected. And when the character based on Rowan looked straight into the lens and said, "You keep trying to make me your scandal. But I was always someone's salvation," the theater went still. Sloan didn't breathe. Rowan didn't move. When the final scene came, the one on the rooftop, the unscripted line, Sloane's voice cut through the silence like prophecy. "This is not the end. This is just the first time I get to tell my own story, and I'm not giving it back." Then darkness, a beat, and the entire room erupted. Standing ovation, shouts, applause so loud it echoed down the hall and into the streets. Sloane sat frozen. Not from fear, from shock. From the realization that for the first time in her entire life, she was being seen, not sold, not polished, seen. Rowan leaned in. "Told you." Sloane laughed. Deep, cracked open, free. Afterward, the reception was chaos. Cameras, reporters, microphones shoved forward. But this time, Sloane didn't shrink. "Was it worth it?" Someone shouted. Sloane looked at Rowan, who stood beside her, arms crossed, unafraid. "Every second," she said. "Would you do it again tomorrow and the next day and every day after? Do you think the industry will accept this version of you?" "That's not the question," Sloane said, smile slow and sharp. "The question is, do I still want to belong to an industry that only loves me when I'm silent?" Rowan turned to her then in full view of the cameras and kissed her like no one was watching. And maybe no one was, because no one mattered more than the woman who'd stood in the fire with her. That night, streaming platforms fought to get early access. Interviews poured in from media outlets that had ignored her months before. LGBTQ+ publications called the film revolutionary. But it wasn't about critics or awards or even redemption. It was about something Sloane and Rowan hadn't fully realized until now. They had changed the narrative. Not just theirs, but for anyone who'd ever been told to water themselves down until they disappeared. Rowan pulled Sloane out onto the theater roof when the party got too loud. The city spread beneath them like something they finally owned. "You did it," Rowan whispered, standing behind her, arms around her waist. "We did. It's not over." "No," Sloane said. "It's only part 12. Rowan laughed into her neck. "How many parts do we get?" Sloane turned. "As many as it takes to write an ending where we both survive." And Rowan kissed her again. Fierce, unshaken, eternal. The euphoria of the premiere lasted exactly 6 days. Just long enough for Sloane to breathe again, to believe, maybe for the first time, that she and Rowan could live like this truthfully, visibly, unapologetically. But revolutions make enemies. And some of them were very familiar faces. The betrayal came not from the industry, not from studios or anonymous comment sections or faceless executives trying to bury them in legal paperwork. It came from someone Sloane trusted. Jules, her longtime assistant, her friend. The woman who had been with her since the beginning. Who had brought her coffee during 5 a.m. shoots. Zipped her dresses before red carpets, whispered, "Breathe." Before award shows. The woman Sloane would have defended with her last dollar. It started with whispers, a leaked memo here, a strange quote in an interview there, then an anonymous tip to a tabloid. Sloane Avery's relationship with Rowan Blake is a marketing scheme created by her team to boost relevance. The accusation hit hard, but it wasn't just the lie. It was the receipts attached. Private photos, conversations, calendar details. No one should have had access to. Only one person had all of it. Sloane confronted her in the middle of her kitchen, still wearing Rowan's hoodie, eyes red from another night of editing sound for the film. "Jules," she said, voice low, shaking. "Tell me you didn't do this." Jules looked like she hadn't slept in days either, but her expression was dry, blank. "You changed? You mean I stopped playing the perfect Hollywood puppet? I mean, you forgot who built the mask you wore for 10 years. Sloane's hands curled into fists. "You think I owe you for that mask? I protected you." Jules snapped. "I made you marketable. You were going nowhere before I polished you into someone the industry could sell. And now you're throwing it away for what? A girl with tattoos and a trauma file." Sloane stepped forward. "She's more real than you ever let me be." Jules scoffed. "You think they'll let you stay on top like this? As this version of you, they're already lining up your replacements." "I'm not on top," Sloane said quietly. "I'm just finally free. Then don't cry when freedom turns to dust." When Jules slammed the door behind her, Sloane didn't chase. She stood in the silence, heart pounding, air heavy, hands trembling. Rowan found her minutes later, staring blankly at the floor. She sold me, Sloan whispered. Someone I loved. Rowan didn't ask who. She already knew. She drew Sloan in, arms tight around her, and murmured, "Then stop trusting the people who want your silence more than your soul." "But she knows everything," Sloan said. "Every weak spot. Every scar." "Then show her you're not ashamed of them," Rowan replied, tipping Sloane's chin up. Within a week, the seams tried to split again. The media pounced on Jules's betrayal. Close Insider reveals performative romance, the headlines crowed. Old studio allies called to express concern. Some threatened to pull the theatrical release. One even dangled a rebrand to help Sloan step away from the so-called toxicity. Sloan laughed in their faces. Rowan, meanwhile, turned into a quiet juggernaut. She lined up press not as the girlfriend, but as the film's art director, fielding questions with steady eyes and sharper answers. When a reporter asked, "Do you think Sloane's sexuality is being used to sell the story?" Rowan said, "You mean her life? If her truth sells tickets, maybe the issue isn't her, it's a world that only listens when we bleed." Sloan watched, stunned. This wasn't just love. It was a campaign. And Rowan was her blade. Then the nominations hit. The film landed Best Independent Feature at the Aurora Laurels, a major, respected honor. Sloan received a nod for Best Original Screenplay. For once, it wasn't for a character written by someone else. It was her words, her story. And backstage, in the breath before the ceremony, Jules appeared. Sloan froze. Rowan stepped in immediately between them, but Jules raised her hands. "I'm not here to fight. You shouldn't be here at all." Rowan growled. Jules looked at Sloan. "You know I was right. You'll win tonight, and they'll still tear you apart tomorrow. This industry only loves rebels after they're dead." Sloan stepped forward. "Come unshaken. Then maybe I'll give them something to mourn while I'm still breathing." Jules smiled, but there was bitterness in her teeth. "You used to beg for their approval. And now I know better." Sloan said, "You tried to turn me into a product. Rowan reminded me I'm a person." "She's going to ruin you." "No," Sloan said, looking at Rowan. "She saved me." Jules disappeared before they could say more. Hours later, Sloan walked across the stage to accept the award. The audience stood. Cameras flashed. She held the mic like a torch. "I was told that telling the truth would end me. That loving a woman in public would cost me everything I built. But I didn't build this alone. I built it with someone who saw me when no one else did. So, if this is what losing looks like, I'll lose every time because I'd rather stand here as myself than sit in silence as someone else." Rowan met her at the bottom of the stairs, kissed her on live television again. Fierce, certain. After the ceremony, Sloan posted one photo, the award sitting beside Rowan's tattoo machine. The caption read, "She was never the knife. She was the hand that helped me cut myself free." The day after the awards, the world changed, but not in the way Sloan expected. There was celebration, yes. Headlines turned golden for a moment. Sloan Avery breaks industry silence. A new era of queer storytelling, but praise is a slippery thing. It warms your skin just long enough to burn it. The real threat didn't come from outside this time. It came from the mirror. Sloan wasn't sleeping. She smiled for interviews, kissed Rowan in photos, posted thoughtful captions, but her eyes were growing dull. Her hands shook when she wasn't holding something. She barely touched food. And when she thought no one was watching, she went still in that haunted far-off way Rowan had learned to recognize instantly. She tried to hide it, but Rowan saw everything. And one night, Sloan slipped. They were at home, the apartment quiet, Rowan sketching on the floor. Sloan had just stepped out of the shower, towel around her, scrolling absently through her phone, then suddenly crash. The phone hit the wall. Sloan stood there shaking, breathing hard like she'd just run a marathon with her heart. Rowan stood. "Talk to me." Sloan didn't move. "It's fine." "It's not, Rowan." Her voice cracked. "I don't know how to hold all this." Rowan crossed the room. "Then let me carry some of it." "You already are." "Not enough." "Tell me what's breaking you." Sloan sank onto the bed, towel slipping slightly. She didn't notice. "Every time I close my eyes, I see the version of me they wanted. Polished, safe, straight. And I hate her, but I also miss her because she didn't feel this much." "You miss being numb." "I miss not being scared all the time." Rowan sat beside her. You were scared back then, too. You just didn't have anyone to say it out loud to. Sloan leaned into her. What if I break now? Really break? Rowan kissed her temple. Then I'll be the one who pieces you back together. Why do you always say things like that? Because I mean them. Because you don't scare easily. Because I already lost everything once and it didn't kill me. It taught me how to fight for what matters. Sloan exhaled slowly. The storm receded from her eyes but didn't vanish. That night, Rowan did something she hadn't done since they met. She took Sloane's hand, pulled her into the tattoo studio, sat her in the chair, and whispered, "Your turn to be marked again." Sloane blinked. Where? Rowan pointed to her shoulder blade. Right here. So when you feel like disappearing, you'll remember that you don't. Sloane nodded. No fear, no second guessing. And Rowan inked a symbol she'd been sketching for weeks. A phoenix mid-flight, its wings tangled with film reels and roses. When she finished, Sloane stood in front of the mirror and cried. Not because of the pain, but because someone believed she would rise again. A few days later, the real test came. The streaming deal, the one that would take their film global, was on the table, and the platform's executive team had concerns. Sloane and Rowan were invited to a meeting in a sterile glass building where two men in suits smiled too tightly and said too little. The film is bold, one of them said. But there are moments we'd like to soften for broader appeal. Which moments? Sloane asked. Some of the language, the on-screen kiss, and the scene where the character openly critiques the industry. It could alienate partners. Sloane leaned back. You want me to water down the truth to make liars comfortable? It's just about tone. It's about erasure. Rowan placed her hand on Sloane's knee under the table. Just once. Just enough. Sloane straightened. Then we're walking away. Sloane, no. This story saved my life. I won't kill it now just to make it palatable. They left without shaking hands. Back on the street, Rowan said nothing. Just kissed her hard and proud in full view of the building's security cameras. The refusal sparked a fire online. The platform's demands leaked. Fans rallied. Queer creators threatened to pull their own content in solidarity. And just like that, power shifted. Within 48 hours, the platform reversed its position. Full release, no edits, no compromises. Rowan and Sloane watched the email come in, sitting on the couch, legs tangled. Sloane didn't cheer. She just leaned her head back and whispered. We didn't cave. We never do. I love you. I know. Rowan grinned. But say it again. I love you once more. I love you. Good. Now, let's go take over the world. The day of the global release, they woke up to find their faces on every trending list, but they didn't go online. They made pancakes instead. Rowan danced with her barefoot on the kitchen floor. Sloane forgot to check the numbers. She didn't care. All that mattered was that the world would hear her voice. And this time she wouldn't apologize for its volume. That night she shared a single photo, a close-up of the phoenix inked across her back. The caption read, "Let them watch me rise from the ashes holding her hand." The global release night felt nothing like the others. No theaters, no champagne, no applause ricocheting off velvet drapes. Just the two of them on the couch, lights low, a laptop balanced between them, their fingers laced like armor. Rowan wore one of Sloane's oversized hoodies. Sloane's head rested on Rowan's shoulder. The streaming homepage lit up with one banner line, now playing, the story they tried to silence. They said nothing as the film unspooled. Not through the opening scenes. Not at the first kiss. Not even during the rooftop monologue that lives in 1,000 TikTok audios. But when the credits climbed and Sloane's name filled the screen, written by Sloane Avery. Directed by Soraya Khan. Our direction, Rowan Blake, Sloane finally turned. Do you think they'll remember this? Rowan didn't blink. They'll never forget it. Sloane searched her face. No, I mean this version of me. The real one. Rowan traced a line down the center of her chest. It's the only version of you I've ever met. The only one I want. Sloane exhaled, long and steady. I never thought this ending could exist for someone like me. Good thing it isn't an ending, Rowan said. It's the part where the hero finally stops apologizing for being alive. In the other room, their phones were detonating, notifications, interview requests, think pieces, fan art, documentaries gearing up. They let it all wait. Everything that mattered was here. But the world didn't pause. By morning, Sloan woke to her story splashed across the Times front page, not twisted, not mocked, not erased, but told with reverence. The headline, How a Queer Love Story Redefined the Hollywood Machine. She patted in barefoot to show Rowan, eyes bright. We broke something. Rowan skimmed, then smirked. Yeah, the whole system. And the flood began. Young actresses messaged Sloan saying, "Thank you for making it possible to breathe." Screenwriters asked Rowan to speak on panels. Queer teenagers posted videos saying they came out to their families after watching the film. For the first time, Sloan didn't feel like she was asking to belong. She was building a place where others could. But then came the offer. A new studio, one with power, money, legacy. They asked Sloan to come in for a meeting. "We loved your work," they said. "We want you to write again. Anything you want." Rowan sat beside her, quiet but ready. Sloan narrowed her eyes. "Anything. Of course." And Rowan. "Pardon?" "She comes with me as my producer, my partner, my creative equal." The executives shifted in their seats. One cleared his throat. "Well, she's not industry. We'd have to." "Then you're not for me," Sloan said, standing. "I don't build without her." They left the offer on the table. Literally walked out holding hands, heads high. That same afternoon, Sloan announced her own production company, Ashes and Roses. Tagline, "We don't ask for seats, we build new tables." Rowan designed the logo, a phoenix made of film, rising from broken glass, blooming into petals. They hosted a small event to celebrate the launch. Not a gala, not a red carpet, a block party, food trucks, live music, tattoos in the back corner, indie filmmakers and queer teens and older lesbians who cried watching the film 3 times. Sloan stood on stage, Rowan behind her, and looked out at the growing crowd. "This isn't just about a movie," she said into the mic. "It's about reclaiming everything they tried to make us feel ashamed of. Our voices, our love, our stories." She paused, looked over her shoulder at Rowan, and the truth is, I would have risked it all for her, even if the world never clapped. Rowan smiled, proud. "Beautiful, home." Then Sloan said it. The words that Rowan had half joked about once, the night they met. "If we ever meet again, I'll marry you." Only this time, there was no laughter in her voice, just certainty. So Sloan said slowly, "Rowan Blake, will you marry me?" The entire block gasped. Rowan's mouth fell open. "Are you dead serious?" Rowan stepped forward, yanked the mic from her hand, and said into it, "Hell yes." Screams, music, champagne from plastic cups. Someone set off a firework too close to the ground and everyone ducked laughing. And in the middle of it all, Sloan and Rowan kissed like the world owed them nothing, but was finally giving them everything. Later that night, in bed, tangled in blankets and starlight through the window, Rowan whispered, "You know they'll try to come for us again someday." Sloan smiled into her skin. "Then we make more stories, louder ones, brighter ones. Think they'll get tired of us? Let them." Sloan kissed her shoulder. "They don't get to write the ending." And Rowan, already half asleep, replied, "Exactly, because we already did." If you enjoyed this content and want to support the channel in a special way, try clicking the thanks button below. It's the one with the heart and $sign icon. With super thanks, you can make a direct contribution to the channel, which helps me keep creating awesome videos for you.